Collecting for the Fun of It, Part 1B, Facial Hair. Today we'll be talking about beards in Major League Baseball, and there certainly are plenty of them. Kind of an interesting photograph of the different teams and the amount of beards on that team is this varied density representation, the hairiness of each team. And you can see the Nationals, Washington Nationals at the top, and the Yankees, which still don't allow facial hair below the lip and the neck, has a zero. But you can kind of look at this display and kind of the density of the hairs and see which teams are the highest in terms of numbers of beards and the ones that are lower. And then you have another interesting chart here, which is the beard growth scale. So if you kind of put this up to your beard, you can kind of determine what type of beard it is, if you're manly or cavenly or Amish or Santa Clausy or whatever kind of indication of the thickness of your beard. So as I mentioned, when we talked about mustaches, there's a series of different internet programs and sites that you can kind of not only learn about the different beards of the baseball players and which teams have them and which teams don't, but you can also learn about each player and how they came about to have that beard and why and so forth. So if we go back in the history of Major League Baseball, we mentioned a lot about mustaches kind of dating back to 1869 and going all the way to 1914. And then there's a long pause where there are no mustaches, and it's just a few kind of scattered incidences where in 1930s there was an individual named Frenchie who had a mustache for a very short period of time. But there also was a group of players that belonged to a team called the House of David from the 1920s until the 1950s. And they were known because, as you can see from this picture, most of the players all either carried long hair and whiskers and mustaches. And so these were kind of a barnstorming team of the 1920s, as I say, through the 50s. And the team was not allowed to play in the major leagues because they could contain facial hair. But they did play a lot of games, again, with kind of teams in the areas, but certainly with the Negro Leagues, which were not permitted to play in the major leagues. So these two teams and different leagues got together. Babe Ruth actually did some barnstorming, which you can kind of read about in his history. And in order to barnstorm with this House of David, he got a fake beard and then played with them. So it's an interesting kind of historical note that Alan Bullet Ben Benson, who was nicknamed often the human mulberry bush in 1934, he actually, as we'll see, played for the major leagues. He had played for and pretty consistently for the House of David. You can see he has a beard in all of his photos. And Clark Griffin, who was the owner of the Washington Senators, he signed Benson to pitch 2 games for the Senators and did so in an effort to boost attendance, something different for people to attend to in terms of, and he was fairly good in that House of David in the barnstorming days. And so there's an article in the papers about his performance when he played for the Senators. And on August 31st, the first bearded player in 50 years, he actually pitched 2 games. And the history tells us that Benson never pitched another inning in the major leagues after those 2 games. So as we looked at mustaches, and we can also kind of look at the different terms used to describe beards, some of them kind of more official, some of them just nicknames and so forth, and you see a whole assortment of them. There's probably more than 100 names for the different mustaches, mustache beard combinations that are out there. Some of the more different names are slugger zip. Zip was the kind of a slang name for the beard. Grizzly, like a grizzly bear. Darwin, if you kind of know the story of Darwin and the Galapagos and evolution and so forth, and his beard, and Chester A. Arthur, the president, one of the presidents of the United States, and his beard. Yosemite Sam, which is a cartoon character. Many people who certainly lived in the Looney Tunes years are familiar with Yosemite Sam. Freestyle beard, the natural scarf, Rasputin was another character in history, and his beard, as well as Pancho Villa. So lots of different names, and we'll kind of look at the different styles here. We won't go necessarily through this list, but we'll go through some of the more common beards and the ones that we'll see on baseball players as we go through them. So why are beards, are they a burgeoning counterculture today in Major League Baseball? We'll see that there's a great deal of individuals who play the sport that now don beards. And these are some of the theories. Well, one thing is that just in general, beards are in style again. So it's not just baseball players, but other males in all walks of life are starting to wear more beards, or you see them more regularly in all situations. Two, there are fewer rules about beards these days, and certainly in Major League Baseball, if there were rules, they've kind of lessened them, made them more open to more players to do pretty much whatever they want to do with their facial hair. Playoff beards are not only acceptable, but they're a popular trend in baseball, which always kind of is what baseball, it's a business. And what they try to do is allure people and kind of encourage them to come see the games and their favorite players and their heroes. Beards cannot help a player it can help a player build a personal brand. So in other words, everybody kind of has their own business and their advertisements and so forth. So they can kind of be recognized as special because of the particular beard that they have. And also, it's more comfortable for baseball players to have beards than many other athletes. Though basketball players and football players certainly have them, but it's easier to perform, perhaps, for baseball players than others. So the popular names of some beards, so we talked about the nicknames and what have you, but this is going to be some of the more popular names that are given to beards, and one is called a chin curtain, so it's kind of resembled after Abraham Lincoln, where there's no mustache and it just kind of circles the chin. It has other names we'll be talking about later. Then there's a chin strap beard. This looks like a chin strap that you would wear probably with a helmet or some sort. That's even thinner, lower, and more kind of contoured to the chin and the sides of the face. Then there's the designer stubble, kind of like a 5 o'clock shadow. It's almost like sometimes they call it 3-day stubble. So it's more than just not shaving that day, but kind of builds up. And sometimes it's even groomed, even though it's mostly stubble on individuals. There's a circle beard, and this is going to be kind of very popular, as we'll see with baseball players, and has different names, but you can see it kind of forms a circle. It's not a continuous to the sideburns, but just around the mouth. Then you have the Hollywoodian, which is a beard that is kind of very stylish, and many of the actors and so forth have these particular beards, and they're very groomed. And then there's a Ned Kelly beard, which probably has lots of names, but Ned Kelly was a 19th century Australian bushranger and outlaw, kind of a grizzly type of unorderly type of beard that we'll see many of the players are kind of noted. That's their branding, so to speak. So popular names, other popular names for beard styles, and we kind of will show the pictures of the drawings of Van Dyke style, kind of like the circular beard. Then you have the Banholz, kind of the full beard, but you'll see the mustache is really not continuous with the beard. It's kind of separate from the beard in its presentation. We talked about the Hollywood beard, but sometimes it's called the wing beard. Then you have the stubbed beard. And you also have a chin strap. We've talked about these before. The respectable gents, or like a high society character in olden times, but certainly a popular beard now. Then the kind of more rough, rugged beard, which is sometimes referred to as the Viking beard. Honest Abe beard. And also the Butcher's Delight, which kind of is a continuation to the beard, but doesn't really connect to the hair and the sideburns. And then a soul patch, which is just kind of a speck of beard kind of right beneath the chin. That's very popular, we'll see. And then Gillette, which makes razors, and they have certain beard styles that they'll kind of promote and even discuss on how you can create this on your own face. There's a Balboa, which has no sideburns and trim floating mustache, is the way they describe it. There's a short box beard, a short beard with neatly trimmed sides, and then there's an anchored beard. It also looks like an anchor there around the chin, if you can picture an anchor. A pointed beard that traces the jawline, and it's often paired with a mustache. So those are the Gillette kind of popular styles. And one of the most popular styles for 2023, and these are the ones that come up. So you have the long beard type, you have the medium beard type, the bushy beard type, the patchy beard type, yurd, and I think the yurd, like beard with a Y, is growth for an entire year without touching it. So you just kind of let her grow without kind of grooming or cutting or whatever. That's called the yurd beard. And you have the ducktail, which resembles the shape of a ducktail, as you can see in this individual. So some trademark signature beards would be, if you kind of follow baseball, but it's always neat because you can get the baseball cards and you can actually look at the progression of these beards on these individuals. And Bruce Sutter, who is a Hall of Famer, came into the league. This is his rookie card and had kind of like a little bit of growth. That was kind of like a stubble in a sense, and it kind of emerged to a very full beard later in his career, as you can see here. And then there's Ozzie Smith, and he started off with just kind of the mustache and the sideburns, and they're not connected. And then over time, he created the kind of the combination of the beard and mustache. And you have Thurman Munson, and we talked about him before. And what's interesting, because he did have a mustache, and if you recall, when we talked about mustaches, the type of mustache he had was kind of a bushy, almost walrus type appearance, which he was allowed to wear in the Yankees. He allowed mustaches, but not facial hair below the lip. But then the Steinbrenner did not want his players wearing beards. So Munson got this shot we're going to show taken with Topps baseball cards and has a beard, but he didn't play with this beard. This is just a picture he had taken before the season for his Topps card of that particular year. And then you have Jeff Reardon, who starts off in his rookie year with a standard mustache, eventually evolves to a pretty full kind of beard that was mostly trimmed. Burt Blyven, another Hall of Famer, clean face, no facial hair, and he evolves into the 89 and 90s with a beard. And Harold Baines starts off with a beard at the beginning of his career and eventually kind of tones it down. So he just has the mustache and perhaps a little bit of stubble in the area of the face. So then you have another type of beard that we've talked about, and it really sort of has two presentations. One's a Van Dyke. Probably don't see too many with this, but sometimes people will mislabel the circle beard with a Van Dyke, and we'll see most players really sport the circle beard. As you can see here with Jason Giambi, smooth shaven when he comes up in the pre-rookie years, and then has a really definite full circle beard that might sometimes pass as a Van Dyke. You have Dustin Hermanson, again, when he was with the USA team, clean shaven, maybe a little bit of stubble, but then he develops the round beard or circle beard, and then he gets really fancy with the razor. He kind of makes a design, so it's more than just the anchor beard. There seems to be three anchors kind of connected there in a very circular type beard. Anthony Redon, he started off with, again, perhaps a circle beard, kind of very scant, and it evolves into a true circle beard, as you can see here. Jose Pena came up in 69, clean shaven, and during most of his career, he wore his signature almost circular beard. Mark McGwire, well known. We have a lot of USA players here, clean shaven face in those years on the USA team, and he evolved into, when he played for St. Louis, with that classic circle beard. And a kind of very, very young pitcher when he was in Oryx in the Nippon League in Japan, a almost unidentified Shiro Suzuki. And when he plays for the Seattle Mariners, he almost, as an Asian person, develops that circular quasi Van Dyke beard. John Smoltz, another Hall of Famer, kind of the stubble around the nose and chin in his rookie year, and evolves into a full circle beard. So Brian Wilson is sort of like the father of kind of difference in terms of facial hair. As you can see in this picture, he has lots of different presentations from 2006 certainly to 2012. Tries all different kind of growth patterns. And in fact, at one time, his beard got so long that he began to gather it in at the bottom and put it in a ponytail. But we can see in his earlier years, he was clean shaven, kind of doing more with the hair. Then in his early and rookie years, he starts that circle beard or kind of a quasi Van Dyke beard, moves on to kind of just the little sole beard right below the lip, and then gets to a full beard later on in his career, which he was popular for. And you can see even in this picture, kind of combines it with kind of some strange kind of cutting of the hair. And so we can see the contrast between his present state of a full beard and when he started in the field of baseball way back as a rookie. So these types of beards that are kind of full beard, lush beards, long beards, call them what you will, have other names, and we've already referred to them as the Bandholz, the Viking. Sometimes they call it long whiskers, Grizzly, Rasputin, Chin Pelt, Chester, Yosemite Sam, Darwin. You can kind of put your own names to these, but these are the players. And again, they kind of got their own branding of themselves through their facial hair. And so we start off with probably the most amazing transition, and this is in Brandon Marsh. And if you follow baseball, you can't help but pick him out of the other players on the team because he has a very kind of eared beard, so to speak, Brandon Marsh. Then you have Charlie Blackmon, again, smooth shaven. You're probably going to even recognize what he looks like when he plays for the Colorado Rockies. Then you have Justin Turner. Wow, I didn't know that was him because we're more familiar with him with his red beard and or a full beard at that. Dale Thayer, again, kind of just let it go, full beard and even kind of combination with lots of hair. Quackenbush, he starts off with kind of a modest beard and eventually gets to a full beard, pretty much in length. Napoli, a rookie card, it almost like shaved the crew cut hair and kind of just the stubble around the neck, and he goes into a full beard. Some of the pictures of him either a much more bushier beard than this for Mike Napoli. Joba Chamberlain played for the Yankees, kind of a quirky type of windup that people remember him for, but also kind of put on that branding of a full beard to go with the whole performance, so to speak. Andrew Kashner, in his early years, clean shaven, kind of like a young looking kid. Now today, boy, he's got the almost a Viking beard, kind of that reddish color and kind of the domineering look at from the mound. Derek Norris, kind of very innocent looking here in this early picture when he played for the Nationals, and then he has evolved into a full beard, almost like that Viking beard. Another person that is kind of hard to believe is the same person is Brian Schindler, and here he is playing for the Cubs with that full beard and the long hair. Again, continuing on with these same type of themes and the full beards, you've got Sergio Romo, and he evolves into a dark, full, lush beard. Arrieta, again, with that same kind of full beard. Evan Gattis, he sports a beard. Then you have Josh Fields and Brian McCann. David Price went for the full beard from his rookie year. Scott Van Syke, again with the full beard. Alex Gordon, he has a really nicely groomed beard, but it's still full at the end, as well as Harrison and Josh Harrison. Carries a significant beard, as well as Adam LaRoche and his beard, which is sort of like a ducktail if you kind of go back to some of those descriptions we had earlier. And then you have Matt Schumacher and Dallas Keuchel and Colin Moran, and contrary to popular belief, Major League Baseball has never had an official beard or facial hair policy. So we talked about no beards were allowed from the 30s until 1970 with Reggie Jackson, and that certain teams, but the reason is it was up to each individual team what rules about appearance they will enforce. So it says we can say we have a rule, but do we enforce it? And if we have the rule, enforce it. So the Yankees are probably the biggest standout in terms of the rules and enforcing them. All players, coaches, and male executives are forbidden to display any facial hair other than mustaches, except for religious reasons, and scalp hair may not be grown below the collar. Long sideburns and mutton chops are not specifically banned, and this was the ruling by the New York Yankees. So they're kind of unique today in that kind of restriction in terms of facial hair. So we go from this kind of full beard. Now we're going to a thick grizzle mane or untamed hair and mane and beard, and Grizzley Adams and mountain man. So these are what you think about when you think about the mountain man. No, I'm not even putting a comb through the hair or ever even kind of doing anything to trim the beard. This is more of a kind of a Grizzley Adams, which is for TV and appearances, more grooms. And so here we have a person that looks almost like a accountant or an engineer in Jason Worth. And before you know it, he evolves into this kind of mountain man and kind of a real kind of out of the norm appearance you'd expect for a baseball player, as well as Jorge Alfaro, and if you've seen him with the Padres and so forth, a lot of hair going on here in these baseball players. So we move from those shaggy heads and long hair and bushy beards to now kind of a shaved head or thinning hair or balding. And maybe they're shaving their heads to kind of minimize their balding appearance, or maybe they have bald hair, or maybe they're just like that look. But we have Kevin Youkilis, obviously, in terms of his head, and yet he has the combination of the balding head, but the circular beard. We also have David Ross, full head of hair, kind of now he's shaving it, and he played where he kind of perhaps had premature gray or was older. So in his beard, you can see that gray appearing. Then you have Brett Myers. A lot of times you don't know what these players have as far as hair on their head because we're always wearing caps, but then they reveal it and you see it's kind of a shaved head, and he continues to have that circular kind of beard. We have Johnny Gomes, again, having that kind of shaved head look with the beard, and initially he was well groomed without any facial hair. And then you have Matt Holliday, and there's several pictures we'll see of Matt Holliday, but in these particular ones, we're looking at the shaved head with kind of a stubble kind of appearance to the beard. But in his rookie years, as you can see, he was clean shaven. We look at certainly a popular player and one certain to make the Hall of Fame in Albert Pujols. He went at times and kind of grew the beard, and at other times he kind of had the shaved head with the little extension or goatee, as we'll talk about later. You have a player that back in the 80s and 90s. Jay Bruner, can't see what his head is like, but he looks like he's clean shaven, and now he's got a little goatee and the shaved head. Emilio Bonifacio, again with the shaved head and sort of like I call it a chin strap or kind of a modified, Abe Lincoln type of beard. Then you have Nick Marakakis, and he's got that kind of shaved head with a kind of a full beard. So they kind of a different look in terms of the head and the combination with the beard and these cards. Now we go into the really kind of primitive or Neanderthal man type of look. And sometimes people refer to this as being scruffy or scraggly. And one of the poster boys for this would be Johnny Damon. So you can see him in the early years, kind of like a little kid on the block, and now he's moved into kind of some, primitive being with his kind of a rough, uncut hair and the scuffy beard. Player back in the 70s and 80s, Kim Kern. You see him as a rookie, pretty much clean shaven, then kind of that gruff, scraggy look later on. One of the most popular players now, Bryce Harper, coming into the league, smooth shaven, almost looks like a choir boy, and then evolves into many different facial continuations of beards and mustaches and so forth. We have Kevin Gausman, kind of has that kind of unshaven, scraggly look with the long hair. Even Garrett Cole has that kind of rough, stubbly, 5 o'clock shadow look. And looking back at Manny Ramirez, he was certainly kind of unkempt in later years with his hair and locks and the goatee and the mustache. So now we look at just stubble, which is in style and it's classic, and in a sense, as you can see over the course of years, it's timeless. And pretty much in the manly area of athletes, it's always well received. Or sometimes it's given a criticism of being unshaven, a 5 o'clock shadow, and scruffy and scraggly to some degree. And Mike Trout, kind of a clean-shaven young man, and then kind of, stubbly and looks like I hadn't shaved for several days. Pedroia more groomed, but still kind of that stubbly look. Chris Bryant has pretty much ever since he came into the league as a rookie has kind of had that kind of stubbly but somewhat groomed. We get back to Matt Holliday, and here we see that he has a stubble as well. Jose Reyes starts off with pretty much not much hair, and then he kind of sports a kind of scraggly, stubbly beard. Aaron Quinn, there's a little bit of trace of some growth there, but really scraggly and stubble later on in his career. Jose Reddick, again, the same description, as well as Chris Taylor and John Buck. So all of these players kind of thin, and lots of players do, and they come and go in terms of what styles they wear. But this is not necessarily a signature style, but just kind of showing what a lot of players will do at different times of their career. Then there's a kind of an odd combination of, now we're looking at the sideburns and the mustache, but no beard. So this is referred to as the Van Buren, as we'll see here, or the Elvis, or mutton chops. And then just as these sideburns are so big, and you can see what a kind of a single chop looks like, they look very much like a Cheap's mutton chop. And one of the kind of classic players, Hall of Famer, that had this look was Eddie Murray. We look at Jack Heiderman, and in his career, he had that kind of look too. Sometimes connecting with the mustache, sometimes kind of separate from it with the mutton chops. We got Luke Scott, who just really kind of took it to an extreme, kind of just a little nubbin where he's not connecting the beard, and so it looks like a very long mutton chop. Richie Allen, or Dick Allen, back in the 60s, was kind of known for his mutton chop look. Johnny Briggs, you can barely see any hair growing there, and then he developed pretty substantial of these sideburns or mutton chops. Sparky Lyle, you can see when he played for the Yankees, again, they allowed the mutton chops, they allowed the mustaches, but no chin hair. Then Mitch Boggs kind of went the route of the mutton chop, where he's connecting the mustache to the sideburns. Here's clear up in terms of a photograph, and that's not necessarily on a baseball card. So we move into the kind of different, and maybe it goes back to the 60s with the beatnik look, and many times referred to as a goatee. And you look at the guy who played on Gilligan's Island, or Dobie Gillis. He kind of got it started, but it was kind of a beatnik kind of movement of the 60s, and it's kind of come back. And we see Jeff Bagwell, and he's kind of carrying a little bit of a goatee. And then you have Joel Harahan, and he has a goatee, kind of connected a circular beard, but there's not really much mustache going on there. Then you look at Jose Valderia, and not only does he have this kind of goatee, but he's also dyed it a kind of a bright yellow. It kind of stands out, kind of his signature, so to speak. Then you have Eric Gagne, and a definite goatee that it has here in this particular baseball card. Matt Clement, he is kind of a very prominent goatee with a dark black color. And you'll see Reed Johnson kind of goes from the sole down to the chin to a goatee. And you'll also see that Ryan Franklin kind of has a little bushy kind of goatee going on there in his picture as a Cardinal. So we go from that goatee to even a smaller kind of, sprout of hair just beneath the lip, which is sometimes referred to as a soul patch or a chin strip, or a mouche. So it's not a chin strap, but it's a chin strip. And so instead of calling it a mustache, they call it a mouche. And here is up close and personal of what it looks like. You see probably the classic player that made the Hall of Fame that would do the soul patch was Randy Johnson. A little bit closer, you can see this in a photograph of Randy Johnson. Then Scott Spezio gets really creative. So not only does he have this, call it a chin strip here, but it's also dyed red that kind of goes along with his red coloration of the St. Louis Cardinal uniform. Jeff Sarmarzia, He clean shaven, kind of long hair in this picture, but then he kind of has that little soul patch as well as a mustache and the kind of the long curly hair, kind of unique branding of him. Corky Miller, pretty much clean shaven in this picture, but then develops that kind of Fu Manchu, but adds to that this soul patch. So kind of different things that you'll see on players with this particular beard style. Then you got the chin strip, the Lincoln, the Ahab, the sailor, and the Amish look. So in other words, it's just a connection of the sideburns with the beard, but there's no growth underneath the nose or above the lip. And that's the classic pattern. So you'll see that David Ortiz definitely had that particular style playing baseball. Abraham Almonte also had that style, and even a current player, Val Guerrero, had that kind of a chin strip. So the Afro mustache beard. So now we're kind of looking at the beard together with the hair, and it will speak for themselves when you see the kind of hair on these players. So we're looking specifically in this baseball card on the left with Oscar Gamble when he came up as a rookie, and then we see his cards as they kind of go through his career has this definite afro, which is kind of unique the way it kind of fits under that ball cap, but it made him kind of branded in terms of his brand. And a lot of people want to collect this card because it's kind of so unique and different. But there's also another player that kind of similar suit, and that's Bake McBride, who played for the Cardinals, coming up as a rookie, pretty clean facial hair, maybe some mutton chops going on here, but then the bushiness and the beard and the cap that kind of give him a unique kind of branding look for Bake McBride. So if you're interested in learning additional information about the baseball card industry, the history of baseball cards, profiting and investing in baseball cards, or ideas to bring the fun back to collecting, be sure to follow us below and feel free to view our library of YouTube videos. And please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Also, check out our eBay store where we have available for sale many of the cards shown in these videos.